Hi, I'm Waisberg, advocate at Google, and I'm here with Avinash, digital marketing evangelist at Google.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming, Avinash.
Yes, of course. No, delighted to be here, Daniel.
So one of the things that I'd love to hear more about, what exactly do you do at Google?
Yes, it is a little confusing. I have two roles at Google. In the external facing role I will work with some of Google's largest clients around the planet. Diageo and Chanel and American Express and Ford and just very, very large companies, and try and help them understand the full opportunity of digital and how can they rethink their marketing strategy particularly, and of course with the flavor of analytics. That's why you and I love. And how can they rethink it, looking out where marketing is heading to over the next 2 to 3 years. That's it. So that's my external facing role, to help people create new digital strategies. And then the internal facing role, I have this amazing privilege of leading this team of storytellers for the US team, sales team, to try and figure out how do you use data to tell better stories. And that we can do at scale to the thousands of clients we have here in the US. And the tagline of our team is relationship positive first, revenue positive second, conversations. So that's what we try and do.
That's great. I saw a presentation by you earlier this year about your business framework, See, Think, Do, Care, which is really, really interesting. What exactly is it, and how do you apply it to clients and customers?
Yeah, I one of my eternal frustrations about why people couldn't imagine better, newer, amazing marketing opportunities was simply that all of the ways in which we thought consumers behaved and all of the ways in which we thought we had access to data were 15 years old or 20 years old or more. So if you look at most television advertising, if you look at most magazine advertising, or even most display advertising online, it is primarily based on demographics and psychographics. To use the famous Mitt Romney quote, agencies would go and say, we would like binders full of women, and somebody would deliver binders full of women, and that irritated me quite a bit, because not just that it is a terrible way to frame anything, but also this idea that we should package up all the 18 to 24-year-old men or 24 to 35-year-old women was kind of sub-intelligent in a world where we have access to so much more insights and data. And that's why I don't like the funnel. The funnel is awful because it says the way people behave is you shove them down things. When was the last time you behaved in a funnel way? Like, never, right? Whether it's a car or a coffee mug. Human behavior is much more complex, and yet we're taught the funnel. So I always tell people, if you like the funnel, I hate you, right? And it's because it doesn't describe actual human behavior. So my analysis was, with the web at least, we have the single greatest gift you can get ever as a marketer, which is intent. So as you search on google.com, when you type words, you share your intent with the marketer. As you read content around the web, we have a sense of your intent. As you watch videos, we have a sense of your intent. So if you have access to your intent because of your actual behavior, why do I care that you're a man of 22, 23 years old man? I don't care, right? Because I have access to your intent. And if at the moment you're searching for this coffee mug, I'll figure out how to find a piece of content related to coffee mug. And so for me, intent is a single greatest gift, and that's what See, Think, Do, Care is the bedrock of See, Think, Do, Care. It says we have access to people's behavior. Let's use behavior, and from that behavior, let's discern intent. And there are 4 clusters of intent essentially on the web. 2 of them most marketers don't think or use at all. Two of them they do. So the first one is the C intent cluster. And that's what I call your largest addressable qualified audience. So it's not 10 million people you can reach on TV. It's the 100,000 people who are in your qualified audience. Something in their behavior indicates they are a part of your qualified audience. Whether they want to buy something or not, we don't care. Now, in the past, marketers would not understand or know what to do with these audiences, but Facebook and Google and all these platforms we have around the web allow us to build these owned clusters of audiences with whom we can chat every single day if we wanted to as a brand. But you can't do that on TV. On TV, you're going after your largest addressable audience. So the qualified is really important. The second cluster is Think, and that's your largest addressable qualified audience with weak commercial intent. So right now, you've just come in from London and your mind is on buying a new Ferrari. You haven't figured it out quite yet, but your queries, your content consumption, your use of your mobile phone indicates weak commercial intent. And most marketers don't know how to engage with that. So that's a different cluster of intent. Do is all about strong commercial intent. Buy Ferrari now. Right? And that most marketers monetize really well. If you raise your hand and say, hey, sell me a phone, there are 50 people ready to sell you a phone. And so that's great. And the last cluster of intent is Care. The audience I think most marketers don't care about at all, which is their most loyal customers. And I love that audience. Not all your customers. I like the Land's End definition. They mark you as a customer if you've bought from them twice, because they believe the first time might have been a mistake or you didn't have a choice. They want you to buy again. So when you think about these four clusters of intent, see, think, do, care, it allows us to, as a business, to try and understand, do we have content to match these clusters of intent? If Google and Facebook and AOL and Baidu and Yandex can find us these intent clusters, do we have the content for them? And then do we have marketing that allows us to reach these clusters of intent with that content? And then do we measure things properly? And I think that it's such a new and different way to imagine how to run a digital savvy business and take complete advantage of what the web offers and not worry about demographics or psychographics, which are very, very weak signals. The fact that you're a man of a certain skin tone says very little about your intent to me as a marketer. So I love pivoting on intent, and intent as it is discerned by user behavior.
That's very insightful. So just going a little bit deeper into the framework,
Yeah.
When exactly do you use data? Do you use across all stages? On a specific stage, you use more data analysis or visualizations and stuff like that?
Yeah, so one of the coolest things about the web is we can measure everything. It's less that they are stages, they are clusters of intent. People are fluid. They may go back and forth across each other in any fashion they like, which is very much like regular human behavior. But at every cluster of intent, so let's say we do a bunch of display advertising. So Facebook, its strength is the C intent cluster. And that's what it's really good at. That's the intent expressed by people's behavior on Facebook. So let's say we buy a bunch of advertising on Facebook. We can actually say, so we're doing C marketing and delivering hopefully C content, not saying buy now kind of crap that we normally see from marketers. Then we can actually use C metrics to measure success. We can use conversation rate. We can use amplification rate. We can use applause rate. We can use those kinds of metrics to try and measure success of that activity. So one of the coolest things about the web and the fact that we have Google Analytics and we have the Data Studio and we have all these amazing tools, or if you use Google's competitive tools like Adobe Analytics, etc., is that all of these tools allow you to measure each activity distinctly. So you have C metrics, think metrics, do metrics, and care metrics. And it finally allows us to judge our marketing accurately. At the moment, even when our partners will execute think marketing, let's say think intent marketing, they will measure it using conversion rate. Now that's stupid because it's like judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
Mm-hmm.
But we can go back to our marketing partners and say, no, here are the think metrics you could use. And that allows you to judge your marketing much more accurately today than even say a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So one of the articles that you wrote on your amazing blog that I really enjoyed is about how to tell a story using data. And I specifically liked very much tip number 3, which is to avoid complex visualizations,
Yes.
which I think is a great tip for people in general to create simple graphics so that other people can understand them. Right. So what's one tip that you have or one specific tip when it comes to make sure that the visualizations, they're not getting in the way?
Yeah. So the post itself has sort of 10 different tips about making sure that in a business context, you're not making silly mistakes. Like don't create handouts, don't try to use all the white space, just clutter things. But I tend to, people who do visualization confuse a bunch of different things. I unpack sort of 3 different types of visualizations. So the first one is you're trying to go to the United Nations and change world opinion about infant mortality. Mm-hmm. Now that visualization can be incredibly complex, and it's totally okay because it'll have 100 years worth of data and bubbles and charts that are moving all over the place. But there will be a very smart person who understands all that who will explain it. Mm-hmm. And so the storyteller is packed together with the data and they go together. And they're trying to get a very strategic, big decision made. And that almost never happens in a business context. So to find inspiration from that, to replicate in a business environment, I think is suboptimal. You'll rarely have the chance to do it. And yet many people pursue it and fail at it. Mm-hmm. The second one is the once a year or twice a year opportunity you have to stand in front of the CEO and a board of directors and present a complex view of your business. Now that few of us have an opportunity to do that, and we can use some cutting edge visuals to communicate that. You can use anything from D3.js and probably be able to explain it and understand it. And again, in this case, the storyteller is packed together with the data. It's very rare that data goes out and the board of directors will absorb it by themselves, because if that is the threshold, you're dead, because none of them will understand it. Then the third category of visualization is what we tend to use day to day, right? Where the storyteller is not packed together with the data. The data in the visual goes out by itself and it has to stand by itself. And this is what you and I and our friends do every single day, multiple times a day, multiple times a week. And we're trying to drive hundreds of small and big decisions, hundreds of them. And that's where I think simplicity is of the very core essence. I think if you take type 1 and put it into type 3, you're dead. It's a complete waste of time. And yet I see that happening all over the place. Mm-hmm. So my quest is type 2 and type 3. How do you get people who are using data in a business context to use it really well? And in that sense, my goal is, if you use the slide as a format for presentation, and so you're gonna show a visualization that fits on a slide and you're projecting it somewhere, it has to do one job really, really well, just one job. And at the end of doing that one job, it has to answer the question, so what? You cannot just have a graph. You cannot just have a line. It has to answer the question, so what? And that is the most powerful, simple way to present data. I'll give you an example from yesterday. So it's a really simple line, but it was a very complex trended line thing. And I was like, nobody cares, the trend is flat, get rid of it. And so I just took one bar. And in that one bar, we said, okay, so I'm going to make some of the numbers up, right? But we were saying there are roughly 300 million queries in this category, let's say, right? And that you as a business, let's say a shoe company, okay? You as a business took roughly 3 million queries. And that's a very simple visual. One bar, very tiny amount of red, lots of opportunity. But you see, like that by itself is not very useful. But just telling you got 3 million of 300, like what's the so what? What's the action? And when you ask the so what question, I think it takes you to simple visualization. So my first goal was, so what should they do? And then it led me to look for, well, what's the average for the peer set? If we take businesses of the same size, what's the average? Well, it turns out it's 18 million. So now there's something interesting. So 300 is useless. That's useless. You just need the 18. So you have 3. The peer set average is 18. Now you know what the gap is. But still, it doesn't deliver the punch. You know what the punch is? We computed that they're losing $6 million every single week by being that much below peer set. Daniel, if I show you the graph, it's a bar with a red thing at the bottom and a line for peer set and a big number here that computes the annual revenue loss by this company. That's how you get to simple, right? You ask the question, so what? And you try and almost bring yourself to be a consultant, a business consultant. And if your data doesn't answer the question, so what? And if there isn't a punchy thing that will drive action, all you have is a CDP. I say that in the post. You just have a customized data puke.
Yeah.
It looks really nice. But it serves no purpose. So look for those 2 things, right? Get it to answer so what. And once you get to the so what, have you quantified the pain? Or you're a nice guy. Have you quantified the opportunity? And if you can get to that, then you're an analyst. What we tend to call an analysis ninja. Until then, you're just a reporting squirrel. You have access to all this data, and you're putting it out in the world. And sometimes people just want CDPs. They just want customized data pukes. Just tell me my little table thing. But what you shouldn't delude yourself into thinking is you're presenting anything that will drive change. If you want to drive change, you have to get to the simplest possible way to present the data. And once you get to it, ask the so what question. And when you answer the so what question, say, does it quantify the pain? If it quantifies the pain, you're going to win.
Good. So let's say you have that slide,
yes.
Perfect slide. Now you have to communicate it. And I know that you are a great storyteller. And, I remember your presentation since 2007, I think. I remember
very kind.
Watching you in Washington, D.C. was really amazing. And now, what tips do you have to give our listeners on how to tell a story? When did you start telling stories?
I don't know. I have always been very interested in business strategy. Always very interested in driving change, and I've never been sort of satisfied with all my custom reports with applied advanced segments and intelligent alerts in Google Analytics. All of which I have all of them. or my data studio with my beautiful pictures in it. In the end, I've always said, like, my end goal is to drive change and to drive action. And it has led me as an analyst over the years to be much closer to understanding the business users, because without it, I cannot drive change. So just this idea, like, my job description is change agent, right? I just happen to love data, and that happens to be a weapon I deploy liberally now that I have access to so much data about anything and anyone, right? Yeah. So I think that being closer to business strategy has been really an instrumental thing, because it has forced me to understand why people behave irrationally. Why is it that when we give them Google Analytics is a fantastic tool. Honestly, like, even if I did not work here, I would say that. It's a fantastic tool. It is a gift to anybody who has a website. And it's free! Freaking free, right? And yet, it is so rarely used to drive change. It turns out it's not data, right? It's hard for me as a best-selling author of 2 books in 14 languages to say this, right? Is that the thing I'm famous for is data. And for me to say data is not that important is really hard. I'm crying inside, right? But it has led me to understand business strategy. It has led me to understand human psychology. It has led me to understand what actually causes people to behave differently. And one big thing I've learned is it's about taking data, bridging the last mile between data and what should you do. That's a big last mile. And even when you cross that last mile, to understand human psychology enough to be able to tell stories. I think stories drive change. In your case, in my case, our stories tend to have a lot of data in them. But in the end, you and I tell stories, and stories drive change. So over time, I've watched all these masterful people in the world who use all different strategies to tell stories, and picked up tips here and there to try and improve the way I tell stories. How do I frame things as simply as possible? But it's simply this quest to drive change. Without stories, there is no change. So in our team here, we have a framework we use to tell stories, and it's very simple. Why should you care? What should you do? What's the business impact? Most analysts who are watching today, their job is framed as simply focusing on why you should care. That's it. Do all of this stuff in the data so you can tell the business why they should care, why a person should care. But whose job it is to tell the business what to do? And it's where sort of analysts stop. And we push. At Google, we push through and say, no, it is our job to go and tell Unilever what they should do. That means a huge understanding of business strategy, purpose, changes on the internet, all these things. And then finally go back to our role and hold ourselves accountable and say, if you do this, we believe this is the business impact. This is the impact on your brand metrics. This is the impact on your performance metric. This is the impact on your lifetime value. This is the impact on love that you can earn, anything. And I think that when you solve for those three things, you will find that you're telling great stories. Don't stop your job at telling people, here's why you should care. That's good. That's good. Great job with Google Analytics, right? Great job with your business intelligence software. Great job with MicroStrategy, right? Who's going to figure out the other two? And I think that when you step in that direction, you'll become a good storyteller.
Sounds bright. Avinash, thank you very much for your wisdom, sharing it with us, and thank you very much for listening.